been in settings where they were government and nonprofit where they weren't necessarily Christian, but I always felt like I could live out my faith through my actions. And that's what being a faith-driven leader is all about, is your actions.
Welcome to Torch Talk, the podcast where we shine a light on local leaders shaping business and community with passion and purpose. Introducing Chris and Deanna from Branches Consulting Co. We are so excited to have them here today with us. They are doing work that blends vision with values in a unique and lasting way. And they work with us personally here at Fierce Creative Solutions. So welcome, Chris and Deanna, to
Thanks
Torch
so much
Talk.
for having us.
We're excited to be here.
So, Chris, we did not prep you at all for this conversation.
My favorite.
And we know that you love us so much for that,
Right?
right?
As I'm reading questions on the back. But I'm going to do
those. Okay, we're going to do a lightning round. So we want some quick answers here. You guys can both answer. So what was your first job?
My first job was actually being a phlebotomist in a hospital.
What?
At a very young age, I grew up in a small community with a small community hospital, and I, in high school, was a phlebotomist because at that point, in high school, you could do it at that point. You could go in, take the courses, take the training, test out, and be a phlebotomist in the hospital. So that was my first job.
I love that.
Wow.
Those are some hard shifts because they have to work sometimes 2 a.m., 3 a.m. because you have to have.
That's a hard job.
It is a hard job.
No, let's be clear. I never worked the hard shifts.
Yeah,
It was all during the day,
Yeah.
in the lab, people that would come in,
Yeah.
or I would go out into the hospital. And
Do you have any more stories to tell us from that?
No. I probably just have blocked them out. But I don't
No patient that you couldn't get. Yeah. Chris, what was your first job?
My first job was at 8 years old, paper route. My brother and I, between the two of us, we actually had the whole town. And the funny thing is, first bank account was when I was 8 years old because you had to have a checking account to pay circulation for the papers. And I'm still at that bank today. So like the people love harassing me. And actually they have found old driver's licenses when I was young that they showed Heather like just a few weeks ago. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Well, I was 8 years old. Yeah.
That is awesome. I didn't realize that you were born and raised in Strasburg.
Yep. Born and raised.
Got it. Where are you from, Deanna?
I am from Holcomb, Kansas. I am a Kansas girl. Grew up in Kansas, and after college, left the state. Yep.
Got it. Okay. Morning person or night owl?
Oh, I'm a morning person
100%.
for the most part.
I know you're a morning person. I can get a hold of Chris at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Not at 11 o'clock at night.
No. Oh, no, not my
Are you
work.
a morning person or a night owl?
I used to be a night owl, but now I am a morning person / sometimes forced to be a night owl.
I am 100% a morning person. I want to be in bed by 9. My husband does not agree.
Well,
Yeah.
He's a night owl.
is he a night owl? Yeah. Okay.
That's how Heather is too. And like even as a young person, I was a morning person. So like even all the way through undergrad and grad school, I never cracked a book after 8 p.m. because it was like useless.
And really?
Yep.
See, now I still do love a good night owl. I can do that every once in a while and really enjoy it, but not very often.
It feels weird to be up past midnight for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also in bed by 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Right now,
I know.
till this another baby comes.
Mom always said nothing good happens after midnight. So that's I paid close attention.
And it's true.
That's right.
That's true.
All right, Chris and Deanna, why don't you guys tell us both about your roles at Branches Consulting and Branches Worldwide, or, the whole conglomerate, however you'd like to explain it, but tell us a little bit about what your role is.
I would love to tell you about that. I'm finding out every day, which is what I love about Branches. So I first got connected with Branches about 4 years ago when I had the opportunity to become a mentor for a leader. So that was kind of my first introduction with Branches. Really just fell in love with the mission of Branches in supporting leaders all across the world. to help them bless their communities, which was just phenomenal. And so then over that beginning of 2024, got got to be a part of conversations about developing Branches Consulting, which was really exciting and just kind of um, um, uh, outskirts of that conversation and seeing an organization wanting to build a for-profit business to sustain the nonprofit. I've grown up in nonprofit world my whole career. Um, and that is just such a wonderful, sustainable model that I love that. And anything that you get to do in working with people in leadership development, business development, of all different topics, I just love. So I came on as a part time basis with Branches Consulting in about January of 24, um, which was just wonderful, which then led to I transitioned out of my 30-year career into Branches officially full time in July of last year. So in July of 24 and gotten to work on both the nonprofit side and the for-profit side of Branches, which is just a beautiful thing. So on the for-profit side, I'm a consultant, getting to work with individuals and businesses that want to get better. Wow. I mean, to go to work every day to help someone get better. I love that. That's so exciting. And then on the nonprofit side, I've gotten to work with mentors as they're supporting leaders all across the world, which has been wonderful. And actually getting now transitioning into launching a new program within Branches Consulting called Branches Institute, which more to come on that for this year, which I'm TBD excited. Yes.
It is very exciting, and Deanna's doing a fantastic job launching that. It's gonna be fun to watch that grow. I'm the president of Branches Worldwide in Branches Consulting, and I've been with the organization, hard to believe, now 2 years after a 25-year career in healthcare. And it was a big step to make a change, but I just kind of remember God's hand and all of that, and then all the conversations that kind of led to that change. But it's been fantastic.
Great.
Why do you believe that culture is the greatest determinant of success?
Hmm, that's a great question. I think culture has been a buzzword for so many years and so many books written about it, so many articles, so many videos. But at the end of the day, culture just feels like it's a accumulation of the organization's values, the behaviors of the players on your team, like getting everybody moving in a certain direction. And when you can do that, almost kind of like the director of an orchestra, that's what ultimately moves an organization towards success versus like a haphazard approach where you're not really there's not a deliberate and a strategic approach to how you're doing those things, to how you're connecting the dots. Like success can be just stalled. But it's beautiful when you're able to actually explain to everybody this is why we do the things we do, so we can go in this direction to serve these people or to produce this product. Um, and then that's just when you see a breakthrough and the ability to get to that success model.
So, a follow up to that is what are the key components of culture? Like, what are the elements that build a culture? It's more than your core values,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
So, what are those things? And what do we have control of and what don't we have control of?
So culture is so much more than values. Values are like the foundation of, if you think about a house, that's your foundation of what you operate on. But the environment, the culture that you build off of those values and those activities that you do off of that is what builds an incredible culture. And that can be everything from the feel of what you're building, kind of go along with the house analogy. Like, what furniture are you putting in? Like, what colors are you using to paint the environment? And those can be, you know, from a practical standpoint, stepping away from the analogy of, concretely, what are your policies and procedures of how you're going to do the things that you're going to do? And are those reflective of your values as the foundation? It's also who are the people you're hiring? Are they reflective of the values that you're building your business on? Are they going to uphold and then add to the values? So it's your people, it's your fundamentally your policies and how you function as a business, creating that feel. And that feel, I think what cultures that do it really well is the feeling of growth. We talked earlier about growth mindset, and that's a culture builder. When you have a growth mindset embedded into everything that you do, that's a culture builder. That's going to uphold your culture and continue to grow it. Um, if you don't have a growth mindset for your people, it can actually be a culture deteriorator because people are looking to get better. We're looking to really fulfill our purpose. So what are those things that you have within your business that's really going to grow that? So back to the values are the foundation. Your practical business tactical things, policies, procedures, benefits, pay package, those kind of things are the vehicles that you can use, but it's your people, I think, are your biggest investment are key to growing that environment that you want. And people are always key and should be the focus, I think, of any environment of how are you taking care of your people? How are you
Here's one you have to answer.
Yep.
You have to you can't think about it. You just got to spit it out.
Okay.
What's one word that you would use to describe Fierce's culture? Yeah. No, you're thinking too much. You gotta come on.
something that is wow. Wow.
No, that takes a moment. Yeah, I would actually say what Deanna had said earlier. I would use the same word Deanna used, growth mindset. And with what comes with that is dirty. It's ducky. Like learning what you are and is a process of learning what you're not. And also learning what works is a process of learning what doesn't work. And that's what makes it yucky is the process. So but humility is a big component of that. Is Lindsey, being able to come to somebody and say, "Hey, I didn't get that quite right yesterday. Well, what I meant to really say, what my heart was this. Here's where I want us to go. And if this came off wrong, then I didn't mean that." So a little bit of humility, falling on our sword a little bit. But that growth mindset. But with that growth mindset comes all sorts of growth challenges and problems.
He said we were dirty. Did you hear that?
I heard.
I heard
See?
it too.
After all that, that's the word you focused on. Is that not our brain? You gave
No, it was all great.
all great. And they heard
What's dirty? What Kevin say at the end of his difficult conversations? Now, what'd you hear me say? And that's why.
And that's why.
So today you guys did performance conversations as a spark session for us downstairs. And I wondered how many of our employees were like, Jill and Lindsey do this to us all the time. And we definitely, you apply the coaching that you're talking about, which is like being curious. You talked about that early on. And what I was actually thinking is interesting is I don't know if you've ever talked to me about that, but because you have coached Rachel so much on that, that's become a part of our leadership approach because we're talking about those things. So it's just really interesting to see how that gets applied from different coaching angles. And
for somebody in operations like Rachel is this, and this is me. I'm the examples I give are painfully from my inefficiencies in the past, but like just simply being able to name something so that way, like when you walk into a situation, you have a tool that you've learned and like you can name it. Oh, I need to have a low performer conversation here because of what I'm seeing. Just simply being able to name it and realize that there's some material back there that maybe I can go dust off. That for me at least was so valuable. Just that naming process. I think there's really something in our mind that happens.
I think it triggers an action.
Yeah.
Because when you've named it, you can then figure out what I need to do. If it's hanging out there, then it's hanging out there and you're continuing to think about it, but you're like, what do I do about this?
Yep.
But the minute you name it, that I think that in the brain gives you the ability to then go, oh, okay, now I need to take this step and this step because this is what I know I need to do.
Yeah. Yep.
Makes it easier. I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, no. And do you mind if I add to what Deanna said earlier about culture? Just having a moment to actually think about it. Um, Lindsay and I talked about this before. Um, to me, I think the culture of an organization feels a lot like a process of discovery instead of a process of creativity. And what I mean by that is, the discovery is an organization of any size that you've got bright spots all over the place. Bright spots with the service or the product that you delivered, testimonials, hearing from your customers as to what went really well, what did they value, how did that fix a pain point, um, bright spots with your high performers. I'm looking at Julia here. I know Julia, the high performer. So what is it specifically that Julia?
Ask her to say specifically. Just kidding.
Specifically, Gary.
Then recognize, again, I'm a visual person. I know we've talked about this before, Lindsay, that, all right, so those components then they're like levers on the wall. So it's like recognizing that we have these levers then at our disposal to pull for our culture, because we know that it's these things that ultimately add up to our success. And it's a process, again, of discovery, not creativity, not like sitting in a room somewhere coming up with some elaborate set of values and mission statement, but instead, at the end of the day, what is it our customers love? What's the pain points that we're solving? What brings value to them as a customer? Why do they choose us? So it's like discovering that, okay, that becomes our values. Ultimately, then that leads to our success.
What are some different things that leaders can do to help the employees buy into the different cultures, especially if it's something that you're discovering along the way?
Yeah. No, I think for me, that is bringing them into that conversation, bringing them along. I love the phrase of like connecting dots for them. So the why behind the what. The, hey, we do this because our customers love it. Our customers need this, whatever the case may be. But bringing them along in that process of discovery, for me, that why behind the what is super valuable, I think.
Absolutely.
I love that. And I think the only thing I would add that comes along with that is asking questions, asking them, what are you seeing? What are you experiencing? And help me get a better picture of what you're seeing from your seat to really get a better understanding. Okay, is there a gap there that needs to be filled or clarified with having a conversation of why and what we're doing? Just really clarifying, okay, are we in the same place? Because what you interpret someone understanding or thinking, sometimes we get that wrong, right? And staying curious and always asking questions, I think is another asset that you do after what Chris just talked about.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, let's shift gears just a little bit. I would like for you guys to share a little bit more about the connection with the mission of Branches Worldwide, Branches Consulting. Your mission statement, or for Branches Consulting Co., you have win at work and thrive at home. But what does that actually mean? So, what does that look like if you're working with a business leader or coaching somebody for them to win at work and thrive at home?
Mm. Take that one. I feel like I have a good example of that today. In the studio, we have brought my 14-year-old son with us. So to us, me, and especially my family, like winning at work and thriving at home, um, being an administrator for many years, like a healthcare system, there was the buzzword of like work-life balance was such a big thing for so long. And it didn't quite make sense to me because like when you look at balance like a teeter-totter, like there's two opposing things on opposite sides, and it's like, well, then it's almost like my life then is like two opposing forces, which are actually kind of almost in can be in conflict with one another. So like winning at work and thriving at home to me is like, okay, instead of work-life balance, like what's a work-life blend? So, having my son here today is really cool because he gets to see what dad does, but he also gets to interact with like really, really impressive, professionals.
Really cool people.
Really, no, seriously, seriously. And then that translates into stuff that he does because he, without a doubt, like he's a serial entrepreneur with the ideas that he has. And then my daughter goes and she teaches. She's a teacher's aide for a kindergarten class, private Christian school that my wife's on the board for. So it's like to us, that's what it looks like to like win at work and thrive at home. Is how can you blend those two worlds together so that both are better as a result of that blending.
Amen.
Yeah. I like how you said that the balance goes against each other because there's really no such thing as balance. You're never going to have 50
Right.
50.
Right.
Everything is going to have to give a little bit. So, how it
Yep.
blends together.
Yep.
I just
Like
watched a video about that this morning. He was describing it more like levers. Like if this is out of if like my fitness is not in where it needs to be, then this is actually going to be affected over here. Like work is affected and if so it is
Yeah.
balance is a myth.
Yep.
But I would say personally, I have had a hard time figuring out like what does that look like still.
Yep.
It's different for everybody too. So figuring out that personal view of like what is keeping it in tension with each other.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. I don't know. I'm figuring it out as I go with the entrepreneurship journey.
But I think it's always going to change.
Well,
Having
it changes with the
awareness,
stages. Like I'm thinking about the
right?
stages all my kids are in, and your kids are a little bit older, so your work life, like that blend is different now than when they were probably 4 and 6 years old. You couldn't have
Does. It
taken them
looks a
to
little
work.
different. And the funny thing was, like, we wanted to normalize that a little bit because I was at the hospital so much. I was on call so much. So, like, we had drinks like in my refrigerator in my office at the hospital. The kids always knew where the refrigerator was, and there's drinks in there. The kids knew where the wheelchair was. They would have wheelchair races in the hallway while I was seeing patients, or they always knew where the dry erase board was. So, like, my peers on a Monday morning, if I was on call over the weekend, they would go to look at that dry erase board to see what crazy art was drawn on the dry erase board. But I'm pretty sure they felt like they owned the hospital as a result of being there so much. Yeah.
I brought my kids in one weekend and they set up desks for themselves, and the girls came in the morning and they made like little business cards for themselves and like put art up and all of the
Yeah.
things.
And it's not always perfect because I think there was a time when I went to reach in to get a paper clip and they were all connected together. And what is this?
I love that.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Okay, so what does faith-based leadership look like in a corporate setting? Faith-based leadership is something it is pretty clear on the branches worldwide side. What does that look like? But what does that look like in a corporate setting, and how do you see that being applied in the businesses that you work with?
I'll jump in. I think I see it applied in a variety of different ways because each one of us is individuals. I think it looks vastly different in Christian-based corporations and corporate settings versus secular settings. I can speak from personal experience. I have been in settings where you they were government and nonprofit where they weren't necessarily Christian, but I always felt like I could live out my faith through my actions. And that's what being a faith driven leader is all about is your actions, your beliefs, your decision making process for how it impacts those around you and the people that you're serving. So, that whole and analogy of our actions speak louder than our words. I think specifically for faith-based leaders in corporate environments where they can't maybe be as strong with their faith, they're finding ways. I've seen it very beautifully done with through their actions and their words over and over and over again, how they treat their people, how they lead their teams, how they treat their customers, how they treat whoever they're coming into contact with. And I think that's who and how we embrace who God made us to be and the purpose that He's put on us, and that we embrace to live a life like Jesus. And that is loving people. And you can do that very, very well, even in an environment where you can't be as face forward with your faith. Um, yeah, I think I'll
That's so good.
leave it there.
That's so good. Just to add to that, because I love what Deanna said there. I think somewhere along the way when I was struggling, because I always felt the call to ministry, I just knew I did not want to be a pastor. No, I thank goodness for pastors. We need pastors. I have amazing pastors in my life, but that calling was not there for me. But I wanted to do something in ministry, but for years at the hospital, like I kind of struggled with it. Like, how do I do that? And at some point, just God made it really clear. He said, just bring your daddy to work. And that was like just like it just snapped for me as to, okay, well, what's that mean? What's that look like? And at branches we talk a lot about with the word redemption, redemptive business, redemptive practices. And it can be considered a Christiany word or a religious-y word, but at the end of the day, like, to redeem something just means to make better than what it was, to pay for, to fix. So I think, in a Christian business circles, there's an opportunity to use business as a way to improve and repair the things that are broken around us.
Mm.
So how we do coach somebody, maybe when they are struggling, how can we lead with love and how can we lead with our heart, just the way God does with us, as sinners and getting things wrong a lot, still expressing that grace for us, uh, all the way up to like when we realized, maybe they're not meant to be here. So in this organization, in this role, well, how can I still approach that with love? There's still a way you can approach that with love. So
All right, let's talk a little bit more about the branches worldwide side and how consulting is fueling the global mission. So, we've talked a lot about branches consulting. You guys are great coaches. You work with a lot of local businesses and a great resource. Um, how is that? You talked about the connection a little bit, but what is Branches Worldwide actually doing?
So you Branches Worldwide was actually our founding organization. So we started with the nonprofit ministry, Dan Olabi and Brian Miller as the co-founders of that organization, and that had the vision for that. The mission is, I won't give you a really long answer. And everybody else can figure out what the nice, beautiful tagline is. But ultimately, leaders have influence. They have influence in their communities. In any community, when money is needed to be raised, when legislation is needed to be considered, and how's this legislation going to impact this group or that group? Like, leaders are always gone to for input. Like, look at this business plan. Like, look at this legislation. How can we raise funds? So leaders have influence. And so what we wanted to do is, if we wanted to grow God's kingdom by using business, we wanted to find those Christian business owners all over the world that already had a for-profit enterprise. They already had influence, amazing influence inside their communities, because we've assessed that. We take somebody through a complete due diligence process to make sure that they are who we think they are. And the goal is to partner with them for 30 years because they already have influence, and their influence comes from them being a great leader, being a great business owner. So how can we help them grow that influence? And the answer to that was, we wanted to provide community for them, because it's lonely oftentimes as a leader and as a business owner, especially as a Christian leader, business owner, it can be lonely. So provide that community, but then ultimately just provide a 360-degree worth of resources to help them at any challenge, any corner where they go to turn. How can we help them grow that business, which will ultimately grow their impact?
And so then how Branches Consulting came to be is to learn from everything that the nonprofit was doing to support our leaders across 28 countries. There's an enormous amount of expertise and learning that we've done through supporting the leaders, from leaders to Branches Worldwide and Branches Worldwide to leaders, that it was a acknowledgement that we've got a wealth of body of resources that we've developed through the nonprofit. How can we then sustain our nonprofit to continue to grow? And that's then how Branches Consulting came to be birthed, was one out of necessity to find sustainability for our nonprofit. That's what we coach our leaders that we get to work with from all across the world, of how are they going to sustain their business. We needed to do the same. So building a for-profit entity that could sustain the nonprofit with our greatest resource, which was leadership development, business development. This is the world that the Christian, supporting Christian business owners, entrepreneurs, executives. That's what we do. We know how to do that. So why wouldn't we leverage that and to be able to do that on a more local level with partners in our own backyard in Ohio and across the US, of just, let's utilize something that God's already blessed us with. So that's how then Branches Consulting came to be, to then supply a support system for branches worldwide. And what we've seen is that then Branches Consulting is learning and sharing that learning, not just financially with Branches Worldwide, but then learning knowledge with Branches Worldwide and sharing knowledge that we're getting from working with our clients locally, sharing that with our leaders nationally, which I think and or globally, which I think is really exciting to build this really larger ecosystem of learning and expertise and support.
Mm. That's so good. So good. I just want to add one thing to that, which is in Brian Miller and Dan Olabi's Infinite Wisdom, they're gonna hear this, right? I want to
Oh,
make
for
sure.
sure.
Perfect, perfect. Make sure they do this, right? Right. They recognize that, like, so looking at Deanna, like Deanna is a seasoned executive, and there is no way that a nonprofit ministry would be able to attract and retain talent like Deanna. And we have other team members that are like that as well. Like, they are seasoned experts in their own craft. They have done amazing things all over this nation, all over this area, supported, community organizations. Um, well, in their infinite wisdom, they had realized that one of the ways that we can attract talent like that to the nonprofit and that nonprofit will ultimately benefit is by also spinning off this for-profit consulting firm where these folks can actually stretch their legs and give back to the things that they've learned the last 25, 30 years, the craft that they have honed, that will be of such benefit. And I think also, in addition to the wisdom that they had in building these organizations, is we have an amazing thing here in Tusk County, Wayne County, Holmes County. And when you peel back the layers as to what makes this area so amazing, and it's because of our amazing leaders, thought leaders, your Christian business owners, Christian leaders is ultimately at the heart of our DNA are those things that have made this area so special. And what we can possibly do with Branches Consulting is be able to help those leaders continue to do the things that they want to do. We can act as an adjunct to whatever it is that they're doing, help them with strategic planning, help them with executive coaching, whatever the case may be, but helps them keep going the direction that they want to go, because ultimately the alternative sometimes is private equity. And if when private equity starts to, come in, what happens is it's not all bad, but you do start to lose a little bit of your DNA. So I think, again, in their infinite wisdom, they realize in order to keep the really good thing going that we've got, how is it that we can use our own local resources to help our local talent?
Thank you for sharing so much about Branches Consulting Co. and what your mission is. I have a few follow-up questions. So, what does a good customer look like for you? What somebody's sitting there asking themselves questions, what would they ask themselves to know whether they maybe should visit working with Branches Consulting?
I think that's a great question. I think we are set up in a way to actually be able to respond to customers of just about each and every size. So on that solopreneur type of aspect, like our executive coaching, it would be an excellent way for somebody like that to get started working with us. All the way up to, we work with organizations over 1,000 employees and in multiple states, operations in multiple states. So then on that side, it's helping that president and that CEO create a strategic planning process, goal setting process, then how to hold folks accountable, coaching. It's ultimately creating alignment across the entire organization that ensures everybody's kind of rowing in that same direction. So really, I think we are set up to really help a leader at any stage, based upon with the work that we do.
And to clarify, we don't just work with Christian organizations. We work with secular organizations. So that's not a criteria. I want to share that we'll work with people who want to get better.
Yeah.
That's what the thing that came to my mind when you asked that question, Lindsay, was growth mindset. Someone who wants to invest in improvement in whatever topic we work through that, but really growth mindset.
Yep, absolutely.
What does the rest of 2025 look like for you guys for both Branches Consulting and the Branches Worldwide organization? What's on the horizon for you?
The only first thing I'll say to lead off is 2025 is called the year of refinement in bid branches.
Oh, I love
It
it.
is.
Yes.
It is.
We've been iterating and developing a lot. And now this is okay, we've got a good thing going. Folks seem to like it. So now let's make sure that it's polished exactly the way we want it. So for 2025, we're adding a couple staff members. Really, really excited with somebody that we just offered a couple weeks ago. And they accepted and be joining us May 1st. So that's really exciting to see the team grow. It's hard to believe that, I mean, Deanna joined us last July full time, and which seems like a long time, not for bad reasons, but for great reasons because we've been so busy. And here we are, a handful of months later, getting ready to add another person due to our growth. But I think just it's a year of refinement, making sure that the service that we're providing both to our leaders around the world and to our clients also around the world is of the highest possible quality, really, really meeting their needs.
The only thing I would add there, which is minimal, because Chris said it so well, is ensuring at that high level that we're staying grounded in our mission that God has placed on our hearts, and is the foundation of the organization. So it's an exciting time to be with Branches. Very exciting.
Where are you putting another person?
Great question. Out of all of us, who do you think gave up an office?
You.
Chris.
Nope.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
I know.
that.
That's a secret job.
No, it did until I say no.
No. Is it in your spot?
Said
Your space?
I don't get a share because I asked. I was like, okay, I get a share. I'm so excited. I'll get a share of space. But no,
Dan.
Dan.
Well, he's there the
That's
least,
not-
right?
He's there the least, but when we told the new team member, his first response was, "No, I'm not taking his office." Yeah.
Yeah. True example is servant leadership. You know, in an evaluation of am I there the most or least or in between and what makes most sense and lead by example. That would be Dan Olabi.
Yep.
I was just thinking you said you have multiple staff members. We know of one. You're the king of secrets. So that means you have other plans in your back pocket at all times. Always have the contingency plan ready to go. So you'll end up sharing eventually. You'll just be somewhere else.
The word. Mom's the word. Until the official word is given,
Yes.
not by me.
My response in the past was always, "I can neither confirm nor deny."
It's okay. We just know. Okay. I want to give a plug for the Branches Summit, which will be coming up at the end of the year. We have lots of details that are yet to come, but where would people go find that?
Absolutely. People can find it on our website, on our social media channels. Reserve the date. I'm going to put the date out there right now, November 6th. Mark it down. More information can be found readily available. We're thrilled about it. We're excited. Again, I'll circle back to Chris's word for the year, our word for the year, refinement. That pertains to Summit too, which we are just thrilled about what that's going to translate and how that's going to translate for Summit, just continuing to get better and better and better and bigger. And we're excited. We're looking forward to it. The countdown's on.
Chris, can you talk about Summit a little bit?
So Summit at Branches is like the culmination of everything, and it is a blast. So the Summit is an entire week. We fly in all of our business owners from around the world, so 28 different countries. We fly in all of our business owners, and for a week long, we have meetings. We worship together. We pray together. We're setting goals. We're energizing, and there's different opportunities for folks to be plugged into that. But ultimately, for the community on Thursday of the week, the details will be coming out as to that week and the timeline. But the Thursday of that week is a large community event, and you won't want to miss it because you will come out of that event so charged and so on fire by hearing the stories of how folks are building businesses across the world that bless their communities. and transform communities. And you'll come out of there uh, just on fire, ready to do something big. And so you don't want to miss it. But ultimately, the summit is an opportunity for all of our community members to come together, support one another, create new ideas. New businesses are started at the summit. Like just over lunch, these entrepreneurs are forming new businesses. So you don't want to miss it.
I can speak from personal experience. The first, because Fierce has been involved with branches worldwide for a couple of years in the consultative capacity. And the first summit, it's like when the light bulb goes off and you're like, oh my goodness, you might only be working with one person, but really it's the big picture of how, how do these organizations work together? And every single time you talk to one of these business leaders from another country, it is a little bit like, oh, okay, God might have bigger plans for me here. We're very short-sighted sometimes. It's that step back out. And like you said, to be inspired, to have new ideas, and to connect with other people like you. It's just a great experience. So you can find out more. You can follow Branches Consulting on LinkedIn, Instagram, or Facebook. You can also follow Branches Worldwide on all of those platforms as well, and check out their websites online. And we'll have more information out later on in the year.
Yeah, so if you're a business, if you don't know Fierce, you need to know Fierce. The way they have grown over the years, but it is incredible and it's impressive in its own right. But the amount of value that they bring to our organization, the amount of strategy that they help us think through from a design approach, and just simply how to get our message out, how to connect with folks is unparalleled. So if you don't know Fierce, you need to know Fierce.
I'm going to have a tear, Chris.
Yeah.
Shout out a local leader, organization, or initiative that's making a difference.
I think that's a fantastic question. And there's, in our community, it's so hard to pick because there are so many amazing leaders that have just created a framework and that's where I'm looking for the bedrock to, to what we get to stand on. I would say, Provia is just an excellent example. We do some work for Provia on a number of different fronts. Provia is the high tide that floats so many boats because I think so many organizations really look to Provia as to like what are they doing? What's unique about how their product sells at a premium? What's unique about how the people flood there anytime there's an opening. So I would say just the effort, the methodical and strategic effort that the Mullet family has put into that, and then bringing Brian Miller in to lead those efforts, it just is something to really, really watch, observe, and learn from.
If I had to pick one, and that is really difficult, I'll echo Chris's. We get to work with incredible people who we get to watch do incredible things. If I had to pick one right now, I'll call out Dutchman Hospitality Group. We've gotten to work with them. Chris has for a couple of years. I have in the last year. I think what's so phenomenal there is seeing Mike Miller grow and develop his team in a way that is humbling. He leads with such humility and authenticity, that he just wants everyone to do well. And he's looking at himself along with all of his team members of how do we continue to get better. And someone that has that kind of level of commitment is just in it's exciting to be around. It's exciting to see him interact with his team members who he gets to lead. And then we're actually working with the next layer of leaders, which is so much fun because they're learning and developing. And Dutchman has really just embraced the whole mindset and commitment to learning. And I find it truly exciting.
So, if you are listening today and you have loved hearing the branch's mission and you think that this is something that you might want to be a part of, I would encourage you to go find them online. You can follow Branches Consulting Co. on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And you can also follow Branches Worldwide on all of those channels as well. You can look at their website, which is branchesworldwide.org or branchesconsultingco.com. soon to be combined into one.
We're excited about
We're working
that.
through this process right now.
Yes, we're thrilled about that.
But follow them on social media. They'll have live updates on leaders and their mission, also updates on Summit. So if it sounds like this is a community that you want to be a part of, we highly encourage you to go follow them on social media. Deanna and Chris, thank you so much for being a part of this today.